In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. At first, there was nothing but formless emptiness, darkness hovering over the deep, until his voice broke through like a spark in the night. "Let there be light," he said, and suddenly there was light. It wasn't just any light. It was the kind of brilliance that could pierce through eternity itself. He saw that the light was good, so he separated it from the darkness, calling one day and the other night. Evening came and morning followed, the very first day of creation. On the second day, God stretched out the skies above the waters below, dividing them with care, crafting the expanse we now call heaven. The work continued as he gathered the waters beneath into seas, allowing dry land to rise up, a canvas ready to spring to life. He named the land earth, and the waters he called seas. Everything he made was good because every stroke of his design carried purpose. Then came the plants, grasses, trees, vines laden with fruit, all sprouting at his command. Each seed-bearing plant and towering tree stood as a testament to abundance and provision. Fields swayed gently under the sunlit sky, their leaves whispering gratitude for the breath of existence they'd been given. By the fourth day, two great lights appeared in the heavens, one to govern the day, the other to rule the night. Stars scattered across the dome of the cosmos like diamonds on velvet, each glowing faintly yet boldly against infinity. These weren't random placements. They were markers of time, signs of seasons, reminders of order amidst vastness. The fifth day brought movement to the stillness. Waters teemed with creatures great and small, fish darting through currents, whales breaching toward the surface, birds soaring above mountains and valleys. Life began to ripple outward, filling spaces once silent with song and motion. Finally, on the sixth day, God turned his attention to the land. Animals emerged, lions prowling, deer leaping, cattle grazing, all thriving within the balance he had set. But even this wasn't enough. There was still something missing. Someone who could reflect his image, understand his heart, and steward all he had made. So he formed man from the dust of the ground, breathing life into him, making him alive with spirit and soul. Adam opened his eyes to a world untouched by sorrow or sin. Lush gardens surrounded him, rivers winding through vibrant landscapes, trees heavy with fruit offering sustenance and beauty. Yet God knew solitude wasn't meant for mankind. From Adam's side, he fashioned Eve, a partner perfectly suited to stand beside him. Together, they walked hand in hand through Eden, laughter echoing softly around them, blissfully unaware of what lay ahead. What happens when trust is broken? When doubt creeps into even the purest hearts? In the heart of Eden, where everything was perfect, a shadow began to stir. The serpent, more crafty than any wild animal God had made, slithered through the lush greenery. It found Eve wandering among the trees and spoke to her, a whisper that carried a weight far heavier than it seemed. "Did God really say you mustn't eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve paused, glancing at the serpent. She answered carefully, repeating what she knew to be true. "We may eat fruit from the trees in the gardens, but God did say, 'You must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die.'" The serpent's voice grew smoother, almost soothing. "You will not surely die," it said. "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Doubt flickered in Eve's mind like a spark catching on dry wood. She looked at the forbidden tree. Its fruit glistened under the sunlight, appearing so tempting, good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for gaining wisdom. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out. Her fingers brushed against the fruit, then closed around it. She took a bite. The sweetness of the fruit lingered on her tongue, but something else filled her senses, an awareness she hadn't felt before. Suddenly, her eyes widened. She saw herself differently now, vulnerable and exposed. Hurrying back to Adam, she shared the fruit with him, and together they stood naked, not just physically but stripped of their innocence. Shame washed over them like a flood. They scrambled to cover themselves with fig leaves, sewing makeshift garments to hide their newfound vulnerability. But it wasn't enough. Footsteps echoed softly through the garden, the sound of God walking in the cool of the day. For the first time, fear gripped their hearts. Instead of running toward him as they once had, they hid among the trees, trembling. "Where are you?" God called out. His voice wasn't angry. It carried a sadness, a longing for connection that had been fractured. Adam finally spoke, his words heavy with guilt. "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. God's question came gently but firmly. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Adam didn't take responsibility. Instead, he shifted the blame. The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it. Turning to Eve, God asked, What is this you have done? The serpent deceived me, Eve replied, and I ate. In that moment, the consequences rippled outward like waves crashing against the shore. God addressed each party, starting with the serpent. Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel. To Eve, he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Finally to Adam, he declared, Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. As God spoke, the winds picked up, howling through the once perfect garden. Eden transformed before their eyes, its vibrant colors fading into something harsher, bleaker. The harmony they'd known was shattered. Realizing the gravity of what they had lost, Adam named his wife Eve, saying, She is the mother of all the living. But there was no going back. Humanity couldn't remain in paradise after choosing rebellion. God drove them out of Eden, stationing cherubim and a flaming sword at the entrance to guard the way to the tree of life. One choice changed everything. From this point forward, humanity would wrestle with consequences and seek redemption. Jealousy burns hotter than fire. What happens when it consumes those closest to us? In the quiet rhythm of early days, two brothers lived under the same sun but walked very different paths. Cain worked the soil with calloused hands, coaxing life from the earth. Abel tended flocks, moving gently through pastures dotted with sheep. Both knew their Creator and sought to honor him, each preparing an offering in their own way. Cain gathered fruits of the ground, produce he had sweated over, crops that grew because of his labor. He placed them before God, waiting for approval. Abel brought something else entirely. The firstborn of his flock, fat portions chosen carefully as a sign of devotion. And then came the moment that would divide them forever. God looked upon Abel's offering with favor, accepting it warmly. But Cain's gift remained untouched, left where he had set it down. Close up on Cain's face. His jaw tightens, eyes narrowing as confusion gives way to anger. Why? The question burned inside him like embers stoked into flame. Hadn't he worked just as hard? Wasn't his sacrifice good enough? The rejection felt personal, cutting deeper than any plow could dig. As envy took root in his heart, bitterness spread like poison. God saw this brewing storm within Cain. Why are you angry? He asked, his voice calm yet piercing. Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it. It was a warning, clear and urgent, and a chance to turn back from the edge. But Cain didn't listen. Instead, he let resentment fester until it consumed him whole. The confrontation came quickly after that. Cain approached Abel one evening, suggesting they go out into the field together. The sky above them stretched wide and empty, oblivious to the tragedy about to unfold. They walked side by side, brothers bound by blood, but now divided by jealousy. Words turned sharp, tempers flared, and soon fists clenched. Then, without warning, Cain struck Abel down. A single blow silenced his brother's voice forever. Thunder rolled ominously across the land as reality crashed over Cain. Blood pooled beneath Abel's body, staining the earth red. For a moment, everything seemed frozen. The wind stopped, birds fell silent, even the sun seemed to dim. But the stillness couldn't last. From somewhere deep inside him, guilt began to rise, unrelenting and suffocating. What have you done? God's voice broke through the silence, heavy with sorrow. Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. There was no hiding what had happened. No excuses could undo the irreversible act. Now cursed, Cain learned the full weight of his choice. The ground itself, stained with Abel's blood, would no longer yield its bounty for him. He became a wanderer, cut off from family, home, and purpose. Haunted by guilt, Cain roamed the earth alone. Every step reminded him of what he had lost. Not just Abel, but also peace, belonging, and innocence. Shadows followed him everywhere, whispering reminders of the life he destroyed. Where once there had been harmony between brothers, now only emptiness remained. Humanity tasted violence for the first time, and the taste was bitter. When corruption spreads like wildfire, can mercy still find a way? The earth was no longer the vibrant, harmonious creation it had once been. Violence and chaos ruled the day. Men fought with men, beasts turned on each other, and every thought of humanity's heart was bent toward evil all the time. The skies above were dark, heavy with the weight of what was to come. It seemed as though even the heavens mourned for what the world had become. God looked down upon his creation, his heart grieved by the wickedness he saw. Humanity had strayed so far from its intended purpose, filling the earth with cruelty instead of kindness, destruction instead of stewardship. But amidst this desolation, one man stood apart. Noah. He was righteous, blameless among his generation, walking faithfully with God. And so, God spoke to him directly, not in anger, but with resolve and grace. Noah, God said, I have decided to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. But you will build an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. Bring 2 of every kind of animal into the ark, male and female, to keep them alive. Take 7 pairs of clean animals and birds too. In exactly 7 days, I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living thing I have made. Noah listened without hesitation. There was no argument, no plea for leniency for the rest of humanity. Instead, he obeyed fully, trusting that God's judgment would be just and his promise sure. With steady hands and unwavering faith, Noah began constructing the massive vessel, day after day. He labored tirelessly under the mocking eyes of skeptics who couldn't comprehend why anyone would build such a structure miles away from water. They laughed at him, calling him foolish, blind to the storm gathering on the horizon. But Noah didn't falter. Every plank of wood, every stroke of pitch was a testament to his obedience. As the ark took shape, so did the tension in the air. Animals began arriving, 2 by 2, just as God had promised. Lions walked alongside lambs, doves fluttered gently onto perches, and creatures great and small filed quietly into the belly of the ship. It was surreal, almost dreamlike, yet undeniably real. Noah and his family worked together, guiding each creature to its designated place within the ark. Then came the 7th day, the final warning before judgment fell. Dark clouds rolled in, blotting out the sun entirely. Thunder rumbled ominously, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Still, Noah called out to those around him, urging them to repent while there was still time. But they ignored him, dismissing his words as madness. When the first drops of rain fell, panic erupted, but it was too late. The floodgates of heaven opened, and torrents of water poured down relentlessly. Springs burst forth from the depths of the earth, swallowing cities whole, erasing everything in their path. For 40 days and 40 nights the deluge continued. The ark floated atop the rising waters, carrying not only Noah and his family but also the future of every living thing. Outside, the world drowned in chaos. Inside, silence reigned, a stark contrast to the fury beyond the wooden walls. Noah and his family cared for the animals, tending to their needs as they waited for the waters to recede. Days stretched into weeks, then months. The earth below disappeared completely, replaced by endless waves stretching as far as the eye could see. Finally, after 150 days, the waters began to subside. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, where it waited patiently as the land dried beneath the sun. When the time was right, God commanded Noah to leave the ark. One by one, the animals emerged, stepping onto dry ground once more. Birds took flight again, their wings cutting through the crisp air. Life returned to the earth, but it was different now, marked by both loss and renewal. Noah's first act upon leaving the ark was to worship. He built an altar and offered sacrifices to God, giving thanks for his mercy and faithfulness. The smell of the offering rose to heaven, and God declared in his heart that never again would he curse the ground because of humanity or destroy all living creatures as he had done. Though mankind's heart remained prone to sin, God chose patience over judgment. And then, something extraordinary happened. A rainbow appeared in the sky, a brilliant arc of colors stretching across the heavens. It wasn't just a natural phenomenon, it was a sign, a covenant between God and all living things. Never again, God promised, will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, the rainbow will remind me of my everlasting covenant with you. Destruction gave birth to hope. Humanity had another chance, but at what cost? The scars of the flood remained, etched deeply into the collective memory of those who survived. Yet within that pain lay the seeds of redemption. God's mercy had found a way, even when corruption seemed unstoppable. Through Noah, he demonstrated that his plans are bigger than our failures, and that his promises endure forever. Would you leave everything behind if God asked you to go somewhere unknown? Imagine standing at the edge of familiarity, with nothing but a promise to guide you into the vast unknown. This was the moment Abram faced, a call that would change not only his life but the course of history. The Lord spoke to Abram one day, saying, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." It wasn't just an invitation, it was a command, a test of faith, and without hesitation, Abram obeyed. He packed up his belongings, gathered his family, including his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot, and set out from Ur of the Chaldeans. They traveled toward Canaan, guided only by trust in the unseen. When they arrived in the land God had promised, Abram looked around at what seemed like endless stretches of wilderness. But God reassured him, "To your offspring, I will give this land." Though it was barren and unfamiliar, Abram believed, he built an altar there, worshiping the God who had called him. Yet challenges soon followed. Famine struck the region, forcing Abram to journey down to Egypt for survival. There, fear gripped him as he worried about Pharaoh taking Sarai because of her beauty. In a moment of weakness, Abram lied, claiming she was his sister rather than his wife. The deception nearly cost them dearly, but God intervened, protecting Sarai and sending Abram away unharmed. Back in Canaan, tensions grew between Abram's herdsmen and those of Lot. Rather than let conflict escalate, Abram made a choice rooted in peace. He offered Lot the first pick of the land. Lot chose the fertile plains of Jordan, leaving Abram with the less desirable hills. Still, God reminded Abram of his covenant. "Lift up your eyes from where you are and look north and south, east and west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your descendants forever. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, so numerous no one could count them." Years passed, yet Abram remained childless. Doubt crept in quietly, whispering questions in his mind. How could God fulfill his promise when there were no children to carry on his legacy? One night, under a canopy of stars, God appeared to Abram again. "Look up at the sky," he said. "Count the stars, if indeed you can count them." Then came the assurance, "So shall your offspring be." But faith is rarely tested once. It is refined repeatedly through trials. When Hagar, Sarai's maidservant, bore Ishmael to Abram, hope flickered briefly. Yet God clarified, the promised heir would come from Sarai herself. At 99 years old, Abram received another revelation. God renamed him Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and instituted circumcision as a sign of their covenant. A year later, against all odds, Sarah gave birth to Isaac. Laughter filled their home, not just because of the miracle, but because Sarah had doubted even the possibility. "God has brought me laughter," she exclaimed. "Everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." Yet the greatest test of faith still lay ahead. One morning, God called to Abraham again. "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will show you." The words must have felt like a dagger piercing Abraham's heart. Isaac, the long-awaited child, the embodiment of God's promises, was now being asked for as a sacrifice. Could Abraham truly surrender everything? Without delay, Abraham rose early, saddled his donkey, and took Isaac along with 2 servants. For 3 days, they journeyed toward Mount Moriah. On the third day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. Turning to his servants, he said, "Stay here with the donkey while I, to the boy, go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Notice his words, "We will come back." Even amidst the trial, Abraham trusted that God would provide. Together, father and son climbed the mountain. Isaac carried the wood for the offering, while Abraham held the fire and the knife. As they walked, Isaac asked a question that must have weighed heavily on both their hearts. "Father, the fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replied simply, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." At the summit, Abraham built an altar, arranged the wood, and bound Isaac. His hands trembled as he raised the knife, ready to strike. But before the blade could fall, a voice called out from heaven, "Abraham, do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Relief flooded Abraham as he turned and saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. Quickly, he sacrificed the ram instead, calling the place "The Lord Will Provide." As Abraham descended the mountain with Isaac beside him, God reaffirmed his covenant. "Because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, all because you have obeyed me." Faith demands surrender, but it also brings unimaginable blessings. Abraham's story teaches us that obedience requires stepping into uncertainty, trusting even when the path seems impossible. And though the road may be steep and the test severe, God always provides. Can a trickster become a leader? Or will his past always haunt him? In the quiet moments before dawn, Jacob's story begins, not with glory or greatness, but with cunning. From the very start, he was a man who lived up to his name, for Jacob meant deceiver, and deceive he did. It happened one day when Esau, his older brother, returned from the fields famished and weary. The smell of lentil stew filled the air as Jacob stirred the pot over the fire. Esau's hunger overwhelmed him. "Quick," he demanded, "let me have some of that red stew." But Jacob saw an opportunity. With calm calculation, he replied, "First sell me your birthright." Desperation clouded Esau's judgment. "Look, I am about to die," he said. "What good is the birthright to me?" So Esau swore an oath, selling his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. It was a transaction born out of impulsiveness on one side and manipulation on the other, a glimpse into the kind of man Jacob would become. Years later, their mother, Rebekah, orchestrated another deception, this time far more consequential. Isaac, now old and blind, prepared to bless Esau, his firstborn. He instructed Esau to hunt game and prepare a meal so that he might receive the blessing. But Rebekah overheard and devised a plan. She dressed Jacob in Esau's clothes, covering his smooth hands with goat skins to mimic Esau's hairiness. When Jacob entered his father's tent, trembling yet determined, Isaac questioned him, "Are you really my son Esau?" Though the voice was unmistakably Jacob's, the disguise worked. Isaac ate, smelled the familiar scent of Esau's garments, and bestowed the blessing upon Jacob. "May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. But blessings gained through deceit come at a cost." When Esau returned and discovered what had happened, his cry pierced the air, a raw, anguished wail. "Bless me too, my father," he begged. But it was too late. The blessing belonged to Jacob now, and with it came Esau's fury. Threatening to kill his brother, Esau vowed revenge. Fearing for Jacob's life, Rebekah urged him to flee to her brother Laban in Haran. Thus began Jacob's journey, not just geographically, but spiritually. Fleeing under the shadow of betrayal, Jacob traveled alone until he reached a place called Luz. Night fell, and he lay down to sleep, using a stone as a pillow. As darkness enveloped him, a dream unfolded, a vision of a ladder stretching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. At the top stood the Lord himself, speaking words of promise. "I am with you, and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." When Jacob awoke, he declared, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." He named the place Bethel, vowing to make the Lord his God if he brought him safely home again. Years passed in Haran, where Jacob found refuge and trouble with Laban. Through cleverness and hard work, Jacob built wealth and family, marrying both Leah and Rachel despite Laban's schemes. Yet even prosperity couldn't erase the weight of his past. Eventually, God commanded Jacob to return to Canaan, to face the consequences of his actions, including Esau, whose anger still loomed large. As Jacob approached the land of Seir, fear gripped him. Word came that Esau was coming to meet him, with 400 men. In desperation, Jacob divided his family and possessions into two groups, hoping that if one was attacked, the other might escape. Then, in the solitude of night, he prayed, one of the most vulnerable prayers recorded in Scripture. O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two groups. That night Jacob sent gifts ahead to appease Esau, droves of livestock meant to soften his heart. Still, uncertainty lingered. Under the cover of darkness, Jacob sent his wives, children, and belongings across the river Jabbok. Alone on the bank, something extraordinary occurred. A man appeared and wrestled with Jacob until daybreak. Neither could gain the upper hand, though the struggle left Jacob's hip dislocated. As dawn broke, the mysterious figure pleaded, let me go. But Jacob refused, clinging tightly. I will not let you go unless you bless me, he insisted. It was here, in this divine confrontation, that Jacob's true transformation began. The man asked, what is your name? Jacob answered honestly, Jacob, the deceiver. Then the man spoke words of profound significance. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. Jacob walked away limping, physically marked by the encounter, but spiritually reborn. He named the place Peniel, saying, it is because I saw God face to face and yet my life was spared. With newfound resolve, Jacob pressed onward toward Esau. His heart must have raced as he saw his brother approaching with 400 men. Would forgiveness follow, or vengeance? Gathering courage, Jacob stepped forward, bowing low 7 times in humility. To his astonishment, Esau ran to meet him, not with hostility, but with open arms. Tears flowed freely as the brothers embraced, years of bitterness melting away in a single moment. Esau forgave Jacob, and together they wept, reconciling wounds that once seemed irreparable. Sometimes, wrestling with destiny reveals our true selves. For Jacob, it wasn't just about survival or success. It was about becoming someone worthy of carrying God's promises. Through trials and transformations, Jacob emerged not merely as a survivor, but as Israel, a prince who struggled with God and prevailed. Betrayed by family, sold into slavery, how far can forgiveness take you? Joseph's story begins not with glory but with heartbreak. He was just a young man, barely out of boyhood, when his own brothers turned against him. Their jealousy burned hotter than the desert sun because of the dreams he shared, the dreams where they bowed down to him. Those dreams felt like arrogance to them. Though Joseph never intended harm, they hated him for it. And they hated him even more for the coat of many colors their father had given him, a symbol of favoritism that cut deeper than any blade. One day, while tending sheep in the fields far from home, Joseph approached his brothers as his father had asked. But instead of welcoming him, they stripped him of his coat, threw him into a pit, and callously debated what to do next. Slavery seemed like the perfect punishment, a way to erase him from their lives forever. So they sold him to passing traders for 20 pieces of silver, then dipped his coat in goat's blood to deceive their father. Jacob, believing his beloved son dead, tore his clothes in anguish and refused to be comforted. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces, he cried, mourning a loss that wasn't real. But Joseph's journey was only beginning. The caravan carried him south, away from the land of Canaan, into Egypt, a foreign world filled with strange gods, unfamiliar customs, and unimaginable challenges. Sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, Joseph found himself at the bottom of society, a slave without rights or freedom. Yet even here, God was with him. Wherever Joseph went, success followed, not because he sought power, but because he remained faithful despite his circumstances. Potiphar noticed this and put Joseph in charge of his household, trusting him completely. Yet betrayal struck again. Potiphar's wife, lusting after Joseph, tried to seduce him. When he refused, fleeing her advances, she twisted the truth, accusing him of attempted assault. Once again, Joseph found himself cast aside, this time thrown into prison, shackled alongside criminals. It would have been easy to despair, to curse God, or give up entirely. But Joseph chose faith over bitterness. Even in chains, he served others, interpreting dreams for fellow prisoners and earning their trust. Years passed before opportunity came knocking once more. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and baker ended up in the same prison, each burdened by troubling dreams. Joseph, moved by compassion, interpreted their visions accurately. The cupbearer would be restored to his position, while the baker would face execution. True to Joseph's words, these events unfolded exactly as foretold. Yet despite promising to remember Joseph, the cupbearer forgot him, leaving him languishing in prison for 2 more years. Then came the moment that changed everything. Pharaoh himself dreamed twice, first of 7 fat cows devoured by 7 gaunt ones, and then of 7 healthy heads of grain consumed by 7 thin ones. None of Egypt's wise men could decipher the meaning, leaving Pharaoh troubled and restless.